Vanilla can be expensive. I'm going to show you how I make homemade vanilla. When talking about vanilla, it's important to understand the components of what goes into it. As simple as it is, there's a lot of nuances to the ingredients that you're going to be using. For example, vanilla beans themselves come in different grades, grade A and grade B. Grade A vanilla beans have a higher moisture content, allowing them to be more pliable, and also they can be used in a more immediate fashion. So typical grade A vanilla beans are used in baking or making desserts. Grade B vanilla beans are much lower in moisture content and therefore are more brittle. The reason I choose to use grade A vanilla beans is that they're more pliable and easier to extract the vanilla bean caviar that's inside the beans themselves. You're going to have to factor in the cost of each, the quantity of each, and the amount of time you're willing to dedicate to extracting it. Grade Bs can take up to a year or longer to get the full flavor component, whereas a grade A with its higher moisture content is going to be easier to extract in less time. Likewise, the kind of alcohol that you're using can have dramatic effects on the flavor profile and also the time of extraction. The higher the alcohol content, the quicker the extraction process, and depending on what your tastes are, you can use any number of hard liquors, whether that's vodka, rum, others, in order not to mask or taint the flavor of the vanilla bean, which is going to be the star of this process. You don't want to overwhelm it unnecessarily with some additional flavors of the alcohol that you're going to be using. When making a vanilla extract, the FDA has certain standards. A pure extract must contain 13.35 ounces of vanilla per 1 gallon of a 70 proof alcohol. Those are intended for larger manufacturing processes that are going to be a much smaller scale in your own kitchen. The problem with those numbers is that the vanilla beans typically only come in count. You may not be using a gallon, you may be using smaller quantities, and they may be metric units. For example, this is a 1 liter bottle, not a 1 gallon. And then furthermore, much of the alcohol that you're going to be using comes in the metric scale. So milliliters or liters. So boiling that down can be tricky if you don't know how to navigate the math of it. And so for 13.35 ounces per gallon, we're going to go with 3.5 ounces of vanilla per 1 liter. I buy my vanilla beans in count, not in ounces. So converting from ounces to number of vanilla beans is something we're going to cover today. Understanding that the alcohol's purpose is to pull the vanilla out, using a higher proof will create a more concentrated product. When purchasing alcohol, the proof system was originally intended to prove that alcohol had a certain concentration. For our purposes, what's important to know is that for every 1% of alcohol, there's 2 proofs. You just multiply the percent of alcohol content by 2 to get the proof, or vice versa. You take the proof and divide it by 2 and get the percentage of alcohol per volume. This alcohol is 40% by volume. From a proof perspective, it's 80 proof. 40 times 2, 80. In a separate video, I will compare a more standard proof alcohol, like an 80 proof, versus a much higher proof alcohol, and show the differences in the product. Let's go over the conversion of number of vanilla beans to ounces. We're going to use 10 vanilla beans to determine how many ounces we're working with. I've washed my hands. I'm gonna measure the full 10 and then divide that by 10 to get an average per vanilla bean. And I do that just one extra step because it's going to give you a more fair representation of an average vanilla bean. If I took just one and measured it and used that as my gold standard, as what I'm going to compare the rest of the weights to, if this vanilla bean is abnormally large or abnormally small, or the moisture content is higher or lower, it's going to skew my numbers. So by doing 10 at a time, I'm introducing more variables and then boiling it down back to a more standardized average. 10 vanilla beans weigh 0.7 ounces, meaning a single vanilla bean is typically going to weigh 0.07 ounces. So it's going to take 50 vanilla beans to make 1 liter of extract. I like to do things locally. We live in Arizona. Today we're going to be using this specific rum. It's out of a distillery in Scottsdale, and it's distilled from sugar cane. This brand is distilled from molasses. The vanilla that we've made in the past, we've done it with vodka, we've done it with rum. I like the flavor that rum brings to the extract, so that's what I use. Now that we've talked about grade A versus grade B vanilla beans, which alcohols you can use, the concentrations of alcohol, the number of vanilla beans you're going to need, let's just talk about the process itself. It's very simple. Vanilla extract has 2 ingredients, vanilla beans and alcohol. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bean, I'm going to split it down the middle. So when I scrape down, you remove those seeds from the inner portion, and you can see there's quite a bit. And so what I will do is start collecting those, and these will all go in to the container that we'll place on the shelf later on. I'm going to cut the rest of these 50 beans and place them aside. The process I use involves splitting the bean down the middle, scraping the caviar out from the center, and then using that to put into my collection container. Some individuals just split the bean down the middle, put the whole bean in. You can also, if you're using a grade B vanilla bean, just grind it down and use that in your extraction, and of course save some time. As you can tell, I'm not in the same clothes that I was earlier. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup. The alcohol that we were intending to use was defective. There was some floaties in it, so we went with something else. Earlier in the video that I had mentioned that we could do a more concentrated alcohol. So when I returned the other bottle, I decided to get a stronger, a higher proofed alcohol. And so this is Ray and Nephew. It's out of Jamaica, and it is 63% alcohol by volume. And so the proof of that is 126. Just multiply that by 2. And it is a rum, and so we're going to use this today. I do already have a batch that's being made with this particular rum, so we're just going to use the higher percentage of alcohol and see how that compares to the batch that's already in place. So we have our vanilla beans that have been cut up, and now I'm going to add them to this bottle, and I'm going to fill it to 1 liter. When you go to make your own vanilla, you can get vanilla beans that are from Tahiti or Mexico. These are from Madagascar. Each have their own flavor profile, and so you may find one that you like more than another. And same thing with the alcohols, whether it's vodka or rum or a different alcohol. If you are planning on making several batches and experimenting in that way, I probably wouldn't use a full bottle. I would look for smaller quantities so you can reduce your cost both by the amount of vanilla beans you have to use and the alcohol you have to use. One of the other reasons that it's good to cut the beans into smaller pieces is that when it's being extracted, you want the beans completely submerged in the alcohol. When exposed to air in the bottle, the beans can break down and affect your flavor profile, so you want to avoid that. And then I'm ready to use my funnel. This is an older bottle that I'm using currently for a batch, and as you can see, the size is exactly the same. This is a 750 ml bottle. This is a 750 ml bottle. This is a 1 liter bottle. So I have to buy more alcohol than what I would have otherwise used. This just happened to be a very convenient size that I wasn't able to find. It smells pretty good. I'm also going to use a spoon to try to scrape out some of those seeds as I'm pouring. I'm going to have several goes at this, so it's not vital that I get it in the first shot. Something interesting I learned is that some people will keep the old beans in that same container and just add newer beans along with more alcohol, and that will continue to extract from the old beans as well as the new beans, so it may lead to a more concentrated flavor profile. Whoa. And again, I'm going to try to get all of those seeds as much as possible. So now we've got a full liter along with 50 vanilla beans in this container. And then you're supposed to shake it up periodically once a week. Store this in a cool, dry place. With the grade A vanilla beans, the extraction time is going to be less than if you were using grade B vanilla beans. The batch that we made earlier in the year, we were able to use within about 4 months. I would typically try to wait 6 months or more before getting the full effect of the extract. But that's it. What I would do if you get to the point where your vanilla beans are starting to get exposed to the air, I would start a new batch. What we like to do is bottle this into smaller bottles and give it away during the holidays. Let me know if you have any questions. In the description below, I'll include links to where you can buy some of these items, how much they cost, and other information that you can get on vanilla beans. This is the Sensory Life.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it because you all cap.
Do you say homemade vanilla is delicious?
My director now?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't do this if you're gonna be...
You can. You're just gonna have to repeat after me and make sure you Give me some. Homemade vanilla is delicious.
I'm not gonna give you that. Okay. I'm still me.
Here you go.
Alright. This is the Sensory Life.